Welcome to How to Play Horus Heresy 3rd Edition. This is part 1 of my 3-part Zone Mortalis series. In this video, we are going to explain and discuss the basics and fundamentals of Zone Mortalis. The bitter conflict that was the Horus Heresy raged across battlefields too numerous to recount. Across the blackness of space, on hostile alien worlds, across scorching deserts and under poison seas, the forces of the Emperor and the War Master fought for the fate of the Imperium and the future of mankind. And nowhere were the battles more heated and more hopeless than in the bitter confines of a Zone Mortalis. Whether in the cramped confines of a bunker network, the corridors and basements of an underhive, or the service tunnels of an in-orbit strike vessel, all Zones Mortalis are cramped, claustrophobic, and utterly lethal to those that fight within. If you are looking for other videos on how to play the game, then you can find them all on the channel in a dedicated playlist. And if this video helps you, then please give it a like, consider sharing it with a fellow Heresy player, and let me know how you are enjoying the rules of the new edition. You could also consider joining the Hopeless Heresy Legion by subscribing and hitting the bell for more Horus Heresy goodness. Zone Mortalis is a special mode of play for Horus Heresy 3rd Edition, allowing you to recreate tense, small-scale conflicts fought in the close confines of a city or a starship. A smaller scale version of the normally sweeping battles of Horus Heresy, Zone Mortalis battles are more intimate and often equally as bloody affairs. First of all, what is Zone Mortalis? Zone Mortalis is a smaller scale version of Horus Heresy, played at smaller points limits than regular games. It is set on smaller battlefields that take place within claustrophobic environments of corridors and conduits. It maintains many of the same rules and structure presented in the main game, but with rules that accentuate the cramped, high stakes and often horrifying battles that can take place in such confined locations. Naturally, with such a small and enclosed battlefield, the units you can take and how they interact with the battlefield and each other changes significantly. First of all, Zone Mortalis is an expansion to the main game. It uses all the rules and phases from the core rulebook for Horus Heresy 3rd Edition, as well as the information from the Libers and Legacies of the Age of Darkness PDFs. Importantly, you will also need the Zone Mortalis Journal Tactica. If a rule from the core rulebook is to be altered or replaced to play Zone Mortalis, it will be highlighted in this Journal Tactica. This video will walk you through the core concepts presented in the Journal Tactica, along with key examples of play. This video is not a replacement for the core rules, which you can find in a dedicated playlist on the channel. First of all, the battlefield in Zone Mortalis is set within the confines of a structure. This can be an expansive bunker network, an underhive, the underbelly of a Gloriana class battleship, or a cave system. Importantly though, it is not fought in the usual open environments of the normal game. The battlefield has a ceiling and is completely enclosed from the outside world. Because of this, the following modifications are in effect. Because the Zone Mortalis is enclosed, weapons with the Barrage X special rule function differently. They can still be used in Zone Mortalis, but only with direct line of sight. They may not make shooting attacks indirectly as they normally would. Flyers may not be used in Zone Mortalis. As you are deep underground or high in orbit, flyers have no realistic method of engaging with the battle and so are not used in this game type. All of the battlefield has the Confined Space X special rule. We will discuss this in more detail later in the video, but for now it is enough to know that this limits what vehicles can take place in a Zone Mortalis game. An area with any variant of the Confined Space X special rule is impassable terrain to vehicles with a base hull points of 3 or more. This means most tanks and vehicles cannot take place in Zone Mortalis engagements. Finally, anti-grav units lose their ability to move over impassable terrain during a Zone Mortalis game. They cannot fly through the ceiling. The battlefield is also significantly smaller than a standard Horus Heresy battlefield. Whereas most battles in Horus Heresy are fought on a 6 foot by 4 foot table, Zone Mortalis engagements are much smaller. The missions in the Journal Tactica establish a 4 foot by 3 foot table setup. However, it would be equally as acceptable to have a 4 foot by 4 foot setup. Primarily, the terrain on the table should consist of a dense lattice of corridors and platforms, with narrow walkways, numerous doors and hatches, and blind spots. The book highlights that the use of the official Necromunda Zone Mortalis terrain and tileset is preferred, but not mandatory. Whatever size of board you go with and whatever terrain you use, it is crucial to separate the table out into sections. A section is 12 inches by 12 inches square, so if I have a standard 4 foot by 3 foot board, I will have 12 sections in total. If I have 4 foot by 4 foot, I'll have 16. Certain special rules and effects will occur during your Zone Mortalis game which will impact specific sections, so having these clearly defined is important. Now you have your battlefield space, let's talk about how terrain functions in Zone Mortalis. The standard area of the Zone Mortalis board will be corridors and chambers. These are open areas of floor your models can stand in and move through. They follow all the normal rules for open terrain as presented in the core rulebook. However, with the Zone Mortalis environment being so cramped and dangerous, there are numerous ways for an uncautious warrior to meet their end. He may stand on an exposed power conduit, fall into an unseen pitfall, or stumble into a radiological hazard. For this reason, you need to be extra careful when moving your models. If during any phase one of your models moves more than 9 inches, then that model must take a hazard check. Roll a d6 for that model. On a roll of a 2+, no further effect occurs and the turn continues as normal. If a 1 is rolled, then the model is immediately removed as a casualty regardless of how many wounds it had prior. This hazard check does not need to be performed if the model moves 9 inches or more due to a combined setup move and charge move in the assault phase. I have a 10-man tactical squad with a Sergeant, Vexilla and Nuncio Vox that I rush down a corridor. Every model moves 11 inches as part of its rush move. As I have moved them more than 9 inches, each model must take a hazard check. I roll a d6 for every model, being sure to be clear which dice represent the Sergeant, Nuncio Vox and Vexilla Marines. 8 of the Marines, including my Nuncio Vox and Vexilla, do not roll 1s and are safe. Both my Sergeant and 1 regular Marine roll a 1 and stumble into some form of unseen hazard. Both are immediately removed as casualties. Corridors will be made up of walls. A wall is an impassable piece of terrain that blocks all line of sight and all lines of fire. You cannot see other units through walls, and as there is a ceiling, you cannot climb over them or move through them. Importantly, anti-grav units who can normally bypass terrain cannot do so. These 2 tactical squads have a wall between them. Neither can see the other because of this. They cannot shoot or interact with each other in any way. They also cannot move through the wall to gain line of sight. They would need to move to an open area or a doorway to gain access to each other. One of the key points of conflict and control in any Zone Mortalis game is doorways. These are automated bulkheads and heavy doors that can be opened and closed to access other parts of the battlefield. A doorway in Zone Mortalis is normally between 2 inches and 4 inches wide, and should be obvious to both players. All doorways should be closed at the start of the game. Units can open and close doorways, and can also attack and destroy them if needed. When a door is closed, it functions much like a regular wall. It blocks line of sight, it blocks line of attack, and it cannot be moved through. To open a door, a unit must do the following. The unit must be in base-to-base contact with the doorway to open it. Then, the unit must pass an intelligence test, using the intelligence of a model that is within 2 inches of the door. If the intelligence test is passed, then the door state is changed to open. Temporarily remove the doorway, and it can now be moved through. A unit can also do the same procedure to close a doorway as well. Again, the unit must pass an intelligence test, using the intelligence of a model that is within 2 inches of the door. If the intelligence test is passed, then the door state is changed to close. Replace the doorway. It now cannot be moved through. If the intelligence test is failed, however, then the door state remains unchanged, and the squad no doubt gives funny looks to the Marine a bit too dim to open the door. Doorways also have the Doorway X special rule. This rule essentially means that some doorways are too narrow for certain units to easily fit through. If a model has the Bulky X special rule, then they may be slowed by doorways as they try to push their bulk through them. If the model's Bulky X value is higher than the Doorway X's value, then the doorway severely limits the movement of the model. It cannot make a setup move or a charge move through that doorway. Its normal movement is also reduced if it attempts to move through the doorway. If a bulky model moves through a doorway, then its movement is reduced by the difference between the bulky and doorway values. For example, my Contemptor Dreadnought wants to move through an open doorway with the Doorway 4 special rule. My Contemptor is a broad, towering war machine, and so has the Bulky 6 special rule. It's going to have real issues getting through this doorway. The difference between my Contemptor's bulky rule and the doorway's rule is 2, as 6 take away 4 is 2. So I will take 2 inches away from my Dreadnought's movement when moving through the doorway, as it pushes its armoured frame through the tight enclosure. My Contemptor's movement is lowered to 6. My Leviathan Dreadnought wishes to do the same, but it has an even higher bulky 7. The difference between its bulky and the door is 3. 7 take away 4 equals 3. My Leviathan can only move 3 inches through the doorway. If a model's bulky rule is equal to or less than the doorway, or the model does not have the bulky rule, then they can move through it normally. If a model has a bulky X value that is double the value of a doorway, then it is impassable to that model. It is simply too small a space for that model to safely fit through. A Saturnine Dreadnought could not move through Doorway 4, as its bulky rule is 8. In this way, you really need to think about how you deploy and move your models in Zone Mortalis. If you cannot get your models where they need to be, then they are dramatically less effective. If for any reason a door changes from open to closed and there are models in the physical doorway, then they may be crushed. If the model is within the doorway, or a unit is suddenly out of coherency because of a closing doorway, then that unit immediately suffers a strength 8 hit with no AP but a damage characteristic of 2. The door is also destroyed by the sudden unexpected blockage and is removed and now remains open. My tactical squad has ended its movement partway between 2 corridors, and one of my models is within the doorway. A crafty hacker triggers the safety releases on the door and it suddenly closes on my squad. This suddenly splits my squad between 2 corridors. My tacticals suffer a single strength 8 hit with 2 damage. I fail my saving throw and lose the model in the doorway. The door is also destroyed. In my next turn, I'll need to regain unit coherency or my unit might become suppressed. However, never fear if you lack the basic intelligence to open a door, because you can also smash it down. Doorways have the fortification subtype. They have 3 hull points and an armour value of 12 on all sides. They can be shot and assaulted just like assaulting a stationary vehicle. Doorways can never take glancing hits or statuses and would instead lose a hull point if a glancing hit is ever inflicted. Obviously, a door cannot attack back, but you would still follow the usual shooting and assault process when attacking it. If a doorway is successfully destroyed, then it is removed from the board and counts as open from that point onward. It cannot be closed again. Sometimes you will move a model through a space in Zone Mortalis that is smaller than the model's base. So long as the model can clear the space entirely, does not end its move on impassable terrain, and it is not impacted by either the confined space or doorway special rules, then this is allowed. The battlefield may also have ladders, stairways and hatches that allow the model to move up to higher levels. This follows all the normal rules for climbing vertical surfaces highlighted in the core rulebook on page 234. Finally, the battlefield may also have barricades. These are makeshift structures, dedicated defences or piles of corpses that can impede movement but not stop it entirely. Barricades also do not block line of sight. If a group of models makes a shooting attack at another unit and their shots pass through a barricade, then the defending unit may get a 5+ cover save. To gain the cover save, the following 3 conditions must be met. The line of sight of every model making the shooting attack must pass through the barricade. If any of the models have a clear line of sight, then the cover save is not possible. The attacking models are not using weapons with the Barrage X special rule. If they are, then no cover save is possible. Finally, the defending unit needs to be closer to the barricade than the attacking unit. If they are equally as close, or the defending unit is further away, then a cover save is not possible. The cover save replaces your normal saving throw and is not in addition to it. This makes model placement even more important in Zone Mortalis, and ensuring that there are barricades and intervening terrain between you and your enemy is crucial for survival. So that is how you interact with the terrain in Zone Mortalis, but it also features some general special rules that impact all engagements. These are what really define the Zone Mortalis game type. One of the best and most intense parts of Zone Mortalis is the Firestorm and Shrapnel special rules. As your warriors battle for their life in the dark subterranean hellscapes, their weapons are greatly impacted in their effectiveness, especially explosives. For this reason, any weapon that requires the blast template and scatter dice will function differently. If firing a blast weapon and your unit misses and needs to scatter, the blast marker cannot scatter past walls and closed doors. Instead, the blast marker would move as indicated on the scatter dice until the central hole touches a wall or a closed door. Once it does, that is where the blast marker will hit. Only models within the same corridor or chamber are hit by the blast. So if a large blast would normally hit 2 squads, but there is an intervening wall between them, then only the unit in the same corridor as the blast is hit. This is the same for template weapons. Only models within line of sight and not behind walls or closed doors can be hit by your templates. I have a Mortalis destroyer squad deep in the bills of an enemy ship, and they spot an enemy tactical squad ahead. I want to make a shooting attack on them. 2 of my destroyers will use their hand flamers, while my destroyer sergeant will throw a phosphex bomb. Note that 2 of the despoilers at the back cannot use their hand flamers as the templates would touch friendly models. My destroyers unleash their flamers, hitting several tacticals. However, the wall stops the template from interacting with models outside of line of sight, a good thing for that despoiler squad in the other corridor. My sergeant then hurls his phosphex bomb at the squad, but misjudges the distance in the gloom and misses. The blast scatters a full 6 inches, which would be disastrous out in the open. However, as the central hole touches a wall, the blast stops there and hits the tactical squad. Again, the blast cannot pass through the wall, so the despoilers on the other side are safe. In the chaotic nightmare that is Zone Mortalis, fear, panic and disorder are amplified to insane degrees. Even the noble Astartes are not immune to the horrors of this claustrophobic battlefield. To represent this, Zone Mortalis has the special rule Blind Panic. Statuses are inflicted as normal in Zone Mortalis, and routing and panic function exactly as they do in the core game. However, statuses can have an even more intense effect on the battlefield. If at any point a routed unit that is falling back ends its movement or passes within 2 inches of a friendly unit that already has a status, then this unit may also panic as well. The status unit must pass a leadership check in the morale subphase of the shooting phase. If it passes, then nothing further occurs and it remains statused. If it fails, however, then it is immediately routed. This can be devastating, and it's possible that multiple squads can panic and begin fleeing just from one routed unit. As usual, already routed units do not need to make this further leadership check. My despoilers have just lost close combat and are routed, and immediately fall back. In my movement phase, they fall back further into the Labyrinthian complex and pass 2 tactical squads that are suppressed. I pass within 2 inches of one and end the fallback move within 2 inches of the other. In my morale subphase, both the tactical squads, seeing their colleagues running, now need to take a leadership test to hold their nerve. I roll leadership tests for both units and I fail both. Both tactical squads lose their suppressed status and are immediately routed. At the end of my turn, I can test again on all 3 squads to try and remove the routed status, otherwise all 3 will continue to flee in my next turn. Note that as per the standard rules for falling back, routed units will fall back toward your nearest board edge in your deployment zone, however will need to obey the terrain rules for Zone Mortalis. They cannot move through doorways or confined spaces that they cannot normally access, and if moving more than 9 inches will need to take hazard tests as well. Perhaps the most impactful special rule of Zone Mortalis is the Confined Space X special rule. The nightmare confines of a Zone Mortalis would struggle to accommodate regular humans, let alone the hulking dreadnoughts, terminators and robots that make up the armies of the Horus Heresy, and the Confined Space X special rule represents this. All areas of a Zone Mortalis have the Confined Space X special rule. Normally, by default, this is set at Confined Space 10. However, certain corridors, rooms or sections may have a lower confined space value. If this is the case, then these areas may become totally impassable or inaccessible to your troops. If a model has the bulky special rule, and this is equal to or greater than an area's confined space X value, then that area is totally impassable to that model. For example, if a room had the confined space 2 value, then models with bulky 2 or higher could not move into or through that area. Models without the bulky rule could move through that area no issue. However, models of bulky 2 or higher would need to find another route. It is important to know which sections have which version of the confined space X rule. It may be worthwhile marking these with tokens, dice, or other reminders so you and your opponent know what's going on. As ever with Horus Heresy, coming to an agreement with your opponent about what everything on the board is and does is crucial. The absence of natural light in Zone Mortalis environments is sometimes so all-consuming that even Astartes' autosenses and robotic sensors are confounded by it. To represent the oppressive darkness your warriors will encounter deep within the confines of the Zone Mortalis, we have the Abyssal Darkness Special Rule. If an area or section has the Abyssal Darkness Special Rule, then no line of sight can be drawn through more than 6 inches of that area. The area is so pitch black that nothing can be seen. Both these tactical squads are in the same corridor and are 9 inches apart. However, at the start of the turn, the electronics in this section fail and the corridor gains the Abyssal Darkness Special Rule. Now, neither squad has line of sight of the other. Unless they can get within 6 inches of each other, or the Abyssal Darkness Rule can be removed, then they cannot interact in any way. These rules represent the fundamentals of the Zone Mortalis game type, and all are used during the missions you will play in Zone Mortalis. In the next video, we will take a look at more advanced concepts such as advanced reactions, deploying from reserves, and setting up and playing a mission. Until then though, I hope this video has given you an initial understanding of how Zone Mortalis works. Zone Mortalis is a fantastic addition to the game, and one that has been much loved since way back in 1st edition. This iteration in 3rd edition is fantastic, and all the overlapping rules and effects really give you the feel of a nightmarish labyrinth of foxholes and kill zones waiting to swallow your beleaguered force. I'm looking forward to playing as many games of Zone Mortalis as I can, and I hope you enjoy them as well. And that is the fundamentals of Zone Mortalis. Thank you very much for watching. Keep your eyes peeled for the next part where we will take a deeper dive into the advanced rules of this game type. And as ever, thank you very much for watching.